Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayanam Namaskritya, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. In this session, we'll continue discussing the 21st verse of the 12th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is part 3 of that same verse. The third part, this is based on the purport by Srila Prabhupada describing the history of Pandava Arjuna. In previous 2 sessions, we have discussed the history of Pandava Arjuna as given by Srila Prabhupada in the purport elaborately. So, Arjuna married Draupadi in the Swayamvara ceremony. So, the further description is given by Srila Prabhupada, what happens. Just to remind you of the verse, 21st verse, Dhanvinam agraniresha tulyascharjunayor dvayoho hutasha iva durdharshaha samudra iva dustaraha. The meaning of this verse is, amongst great bowmen, this child will be as good as Arjuna. He will be as irresistible as fire and as unsurpassable as the ocean. These are words spoken by the Brahmanas who are preparing the horoscope of the child, newly born child Parikshit. And at such a time, they read the horoscope and foretell the future of the child. Because Yudhishthira was anxious that this only surviving descendant of the entire Kuru dynasty, will he be as worthy as his forefathers? That was his anxiety. So the Brahmanas assured him this child is a highly qualified child. So he was specially protected by Krishna when he was in his mother's womb. And he is going to be an excellent, because somebody who is a pure devotee is qualified with all wonderful qualifications. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunaistatra samasate suraha. This statement in the Bhagavatam, that a pure devotee has all good qualities. Actually, every living being, a spirit soul, has all good qualities. But it's only because we are covered by the material contamination that our good qualities get covered, and the contamination brings forth all kinds of bad qualities. So, as spirit soul, nobody is a bad person. No living being is a bad person as spirit soul. But we have to purify our consciousness and become free from all the contaminating bad qualities which are a result of the material contamination in contact with material nature. So therefore, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that by practicing yoga, Yogam Atma Vishuddhaye, you purify your heart of all the dirty things, then the good qualities will shine forth from a purified heart. And the process of purification is the process of yoga. But among the yoga processes, the best process is the process of bhakti yoga. And that bhakti yoga also has been simplified further. Among the different yoga systems, bhakti yoga is the easiest. But even among the different practices of bhakti yoga, the simplest practice of chanting the holy name of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, has been especially taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the fallen souls of this Kali Yuga. That you simply chant Hare Krishna, purify your heart of all material contamination, and become first class devotees, eligible to become free from material bondage and go to the spiritual world where Krishna is engaged in his wonderful, loving pastimes with his devotees. Krishna is inviting, come back to me in my personal abode. And we qualify by simply chanting Hare Krishna and augmenting this chanting with few other practices which will enrich our bhakti. So the description is being given here about this child, that this child Parikshit will be as expert bowman when he grows up as the grandfather of the child, as capable as Arjuna, Pandava Arjuna. So Pandava Arjuna's history is being described by Prabhupada in the purport. So I continue to read from the purport. So Arjuna met Ulupi at Haridwar, and he was attracted by a girl belonging to Nagaloka, and thus Iravan was born. Earlier it was said Arjuna had 4 sons through 4 wives. So Shrutakirti, Abhimanyu, Babruvahana and Iravan. So Iravan was born through Ulupi. And similarly, Arjuna met Chitrangada, a daughter of the king of Manipur, and thus Babruvahana was born. So Srila Prabhupada is describing how Arjuna had 4 sons through 4 wives. Lord Sri Krishna made a plan to help Arjuna to kidnap Subhadra, sister of Krishna, because Baladeva was inclined to hand her over to Duryodhana. Both Krishna and Balaram had one sister, Subhadra, the daughter of Vasudeva and Devaki. And both Krishna and Balaram are sons of Vasudeva and Devaki. So Balaram was inclined to marry his sister Subhadra to Duryodhana. Duryodhana was the student of Balaram. Balaram taught Duryodhana the art of fighting with a club, Gada. He was an expert. Duryodhana had become an expert, being taught by Balaram how to nicely use that club in a fight, in a combat with another Kshatriya. But Krishna wanted to hand over his sister Subhadra to Arjuna. So Krishna made a plan how Arjuna can actually kidnap Subhadra and marry her. Yudhishthira also agreed with Krishna's plan, and thus Subhadra was forcibly taken away by Arjuna and married to Arjuna. Subhadra's son through Arjuna is Abhimanyu, and Abhimanyu is the father of Parikshit Maharaj, the son of Abhimanyu and Uttara. Parikshit is the son of Abhimanyu and Uttara. But this Abhimanyu, he was killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. And therefore, Parikshit was born as the posthumous child of Abhimanyu. Then it is also described. So, Prabhupada has clearly explained the 4 sons who were born of the 4 wives of Arjuna. Through Draupadi, Arjuna had a son by name Shrutakirti. Through Subhadra, he had a son by name Abhimanyu. Through Chitrangada, he had a son by name Babruvahana. And through Ulupi, he had a son by name Iravan. Further, it is described, Arjuna satisfied the fire god Agni Deva by setting fire to the Khandava forest, and thus the fire god gave him one weapon. Arjuna actually was preparing for the big battle of Kurukshetra, because the Pandavas were exiled by Duryodhana when they were cheated in a gambling match. They were cheated by Duryodhana and they were exiled. So after that exile period was over, Duryodhana refused to give back their kingdom to the Pandavas. So then war was inevitable. But in the meantime, during exile, Arjuna actually was preparing. So he got one weapon from the fire god, and when the Khandava forest was set on fire, Indra became angry. And Indra, assisted by all other demigods, began fighting with Arjuna, because Arjuna set fire to that forest. So all the devatas headed by Indra, they were defeated by Arjuna, and Indra returned to his heavenly kingdom after suffering defeat at the hands of Arjuna. Then Arjuna also promised protection to one Maya Danava or Mayasura. And Mayasura, being protected by Arjuna, actually, he presented one valuable conch shell celebrated as the Deva Datta. Similarly, Arjuna received many other valuable weapons from Indradeva when Indradeva was satisfied to see the chivalry of Arjuna. When Yudhishthira was disappointed in defeating Jarasandha, then Arjuna gave assurance to Yudhishthira that Arjuna, Bhima and Krishna will go to Magadha to challenge Jarasandha. And when they went, Bhima was able to kill Jarasandha. And in that way, Yudhishthira was able to hold the Rajasuya sacrifice. Then Arjuna also underwent severe types of penances when he was rewarded by Indradeva. Shiva also once wanted to try the strength of Arjuna, and Shiva, disguised as an aborigine, he met Arjuna. There was a fight between Shiva, disguised as the aborigine, and Arjuna, and Shiva was satisfied with Arjuna's chivalrous nature, his bravery and his skill in fighting, and Shiva disclosed his identity. So Arjuna prayed to Lord Shiva in all humbleness, and when Shiva was satisfied with Arjuna's behavior, Shiva presented his Pashupata Astra to Arjuna. In this way, Arjuna acquired many other important weapons from different devatas. He got Dandastra from Yamaraj, he got Pashastra from Varuna, he got Antardhana Astra from Kuvera, and actually Arjuna was fully equipped to fight that battle of Kurukshetra in order to win back the kingdom from Duryodhana. Even when Duryodhana was under the clutches of some Gandharvas, that time Arjuna actually fought against the Gandharvas and released Duryodhana. And it is also described that Arjuna was the one to whom the philosophical discourses on the Bhagavad Gita were spoken by Lord Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And even on the battlefield, Arjuna fought very, very wonderfully against the Kauravas. And after the disappearance of Lord Krishna, the message was brought by Arjuna to Maharaj Yudhishthira. And Arjuna actually, when Vasudeva passed away after the disappearance of Krishna, then Arjuna performed the funeral ceremony of Vasudeva in the absence of Krishna. So at last, when advised by Vyasadeva, all the Pandava brothers headed for Mahaprasthana. On the way, at the request of his brother, Arjuna gave up all important weapons as useless, and he proceeded on Mahaprasthana. So this is the description of the history of the Pandava Arjuna as given by Srila Prabhupada in this purport. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.